Um, Today we have Amanda Roletter and Steve Riot to discuss cellular technology advancements. If anyone has any questions for Steve or Amanda, please go ahead and type it in your questions pane in your GoToWebinar menu, and we will get to every single question at the end of this webinar. With that, I'll turn it over to Steve and Amanda. Enjoy.
Excellent. Thank you, Tricia. And like Tricia said, I am sitting here with Amanda Roletter, and Amanda has a lot of experience in cellular technology. She's been with us here for quite a while at Nex-Tech, not only with Nex-Tech, but she's also just kind of a guru in the industry. And Amanda, do you want to tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I have been with Nex-Tech for 9 years. I have been familiar with the wireless cellular aspect of it since Nex-Tech Wireless actually started about 8 years ago. So I've kind of grown with that over the last 8 years.
Well, excellent. And with that change in the last 8 years, you've really seen a significant change in wireless technology. And I think one of those technologies that we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about later today has been the advent from 2G to 3G, and now we're talking 4G. But with that advanced technology, we've seen faster data speeds. And you put a graphic up here really showing that mobile data use is what, going to exceed or is exceeding regular internet browsing. Is that what I'm reading here?
Yeah, within the next year or by the end of the year, it looks like mobile web will be outgrowing the actual desktop web browsing. People obviously on the go more, and with more and more smartphones out there and the faster data speeds, people are using their phones more for that internet browsing.
Now, I think I saw a statistic that said like more than 50% of Facebook traffic, for example, is mobile browsing. Is that what you're seeing most of our customers using in some of the social media, or just a little of all over the board?
Definitely social media has really, I think, made that grow a lot faster.
And I know that I'm Snapchatting everything and sending pictures, and that's definitely a huge hog of internet bandwidth. But with that, we just talked a little bit about 3G and 4G, and I think this is a hilarious picture that you found here. But tell us a little bit about what 4G means. And correct me where I'm wrong here, but 4G and the term LTE are interchangeable?
Yes. Yeah, 4G, LTE, it's just a fast data speed. It started with, obviously the first generation was analog and was only voice calls. Second generation, the 2G, offered some data services like text messaging, email, and basic web browsing. 3G is the third generation and actually provides true access to the internet, video content, mobile apps, and then obviously 4G has come around, which gives connectivity up to about 10 times faster than 3G. Average speeds on 4G, the downlink is usually 6 to 8 megabytes per second, peaks of 25. The uplink is usually around 2 to 5 megabytes per second. Average speeds on 3G were only 500 kilobytes per second to 1.5 meg. So there's obviously a huge difference there.
And I mean, the speeds that you're talking about on 4G are faster than a lot of people's internet speeds at their house. So you're definitely seeing an increase that's dramatic on their ability to use like streaming video for sure. I think that's what we're seeing. And so what things, I guess 4G is kind of out there a little bit now. Is it spread nationwide yet, or is it pretty spotty on coverage?
It's spreading. Obviously, more and more carriers are going that route, are looking for ways to change over to the 4G.
I gotcha. Now, I have to ask you a little bit of a question. One of the things that want to know is Nex-Tech Wireless. Are we going to see 4G this year?
At the end of the year, we will see 4G.
Okay. And will my phone that I currently have work on 4G?
No. You do have to have a 4G LTE compatible device in order to take advantage of those 4G speeds. Most of the 4G phones will also support 3G speeds in those areas that have not developed the 4G yet. So that will be available.
Okay, excellent. That's good to know. So Apple, they've made some pretty amazing announcements here in the last couple weeks, and I currently have a 4S, and so I'm already a generation behind. Now I know that they have come out with these additional phones. Can you walk us through this distinguishing between, so I have the 4S, I think, I'm not positive, do you have a 5? You have a 4S too, okay. So I know that several of the folks here in the office have 5s, and of course everybody's really looking forward to getting into these 5S's and 5C. So can you walk me through the difference between a 4S and a 5, and then from the 5 to these new releases?
Sure. The 4S obviously introduced Siri. It had the A5 processor, glass body. We went into the 5. The iPhone 5 was released last September, and that's where we saw a faster processor. The display did grow a ½ inch, so it was a little bigger, thinner but bigger display. They went to the aluminum body versus the glass at that point in time. And then obviously this year, all of the hype that has come out regarding the 5C and the 5S, that was just released last week. The 5C will basically take the place of the iPhone 5. It will be basically the same on the inside as well, a slightly improved camera and battery. That is going to be a plastic body, so that's a little bit of a difference there. There will be different colors available, 5 different colors available of the 5C. So basically it's going to be a less expensive option for that. Now the 5S has also been released. It does have an A7 processor, about 40 times faster than the A6, which the iPhone 5 had. Which the 5C is also going to have the A6. The 5S is the first 64-bit phone. It will have a fingerprint scanner on it. It will have the aluminum body, which the iPhone 5 had, and there will be a couple different colors available in that. Now, the 5C and the 5S will be 4G LTE compatible.
Okay. So a couple things that I noticed. So my wife has a 5, which of course she's been pointing out that she has the most latest technology over my 4S for quite some time. So I can't wait to get my phone upgraded. But I noticed that the 5 seems significantly lighter than the 4S. Is that your kind of, have you seen that too, or?
Yes, it definitely, it's lighter, it's thinner, it just has larger display.
Yeah, so it's actually a larger viewing phone, but it is lighter and thinner, so that's pretty nice. And I noticed that could be a big difference. Now, one of the things that I also noticed that in the Riot household is a little bit of a challenge is when I went from the 4S to my wife's 5, they don't take the same connector. They have that really thin, I think they call it the lightning connector. So if you have some of those legacy charging or iHomes or speaker docks or all those things, you're going to have to get an adapter. I assume they make one?
Yes, they do. That was kind of my issue as well. I got my 4S last year right when the 5 came out, but because it had the same connector as my iPad and all of that, I found that a little more convenient. But obviously that has changed, and you would need an adapter if you have some of those older models of the Apple devices.
Now, while it's inconvenient, I have noticed that lightning connector is really easy to put in the phone. I can put it in either way. There's no like right side up. Whereas that 4S connector, you know, there's a right side up. It kind of feels, I don't know, it feels rough when I stick it in that connector sometimes, and I like that thinner connector for sure. So we're really talking about a faster processor going from a 4S to a 5, probably double. And then we're talking even faster processors going, is the processor faster in the C than a 5, regular, or is it pretty much the same processor between those two?
It's the same processor. From what I can tell, it's the same processor. in the iPhone 5 as the 5C.
Okay. And then the S is where I go to 64-bit, which I know my laptop's running on, so I know that they can process more data at one time. That's pretty slick. I find I use the camera on my iPhone more than any other camera I use, even though I have a nicer, more SLR-style camera, so it's probably nice to have a little bit better camera. I can see that being definitely beneficial. Now, you talked about a fingerprint reader, so what are we talking about? The ability for me to eliminate that password and just use my finger?
Yes, yeah, you would just scan your fingerprint to unlock your phone. Anytime you needed to enter your Apple ID, whether you're purchasing apps and that sort of thing, you just scan your fingerprint and it would do that. So that eliminates having to remember that password. So that's a convenience there.
So that seems like, yeah, it seems like a lot easier to do. It seems kind of more secure, I don't know, because it'd be easy to look over my shoulder and see what I'm typing in the password, whereas it'd be a little more difficult to get my finger, not impossible for sure. All right. So moving on, I know that I've been watching 5, 6, and 7 version of iOS. iOS 7 was released, let's see, what, Monday this week, I think is what I saw?
On the 18th.
18th. I upgraded my 4S. 4S is upgradable to 7, but I believe it is the lowest version of the iPhone that will accept 7. Is that right?
I believe so.
And so, you know, if you have an older 4 or whatnot, it won't necessarily be compatible with the iOS 7. So that's might be another reason to look for an upgrade. But just a few of the things that I personally saw on the upgrade from 6 to 7 is the interface is totally new, but not scary new. I mean, it's similar, but different. I know that I'm constantly turning my Bluetooth on and off for my headset, things like that. Instead of going into settings and then going into the Bluetooth menu, I can now just swipe my phone from the bottom, and then Amanda's giving me pointers here. That then gives me instant access to Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. What other else does it give me access to on that, Amanda?
Quick access to your calculator, your flashlight, your camera, adjusting screen brightness, playing music. Yeah.
So that's pretty nice feature. I know that you used to double-click the home button and then bring up those apps that were running in the background, and to close those, you used to push and hold. It brought up the minus signs. Now it shows them all in a nice, more GUI interface, or just swipe them up and they disappear. That's pretty slick. You know, I don't know. It was a change. It makes it maybe a little prettier, but it really didn't change my whole world. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. It's not something that you have to learn all over again, for sure.
So if you have a 4S or 5 today, what would be your personal recommendation on going, would you upgrade to iOS 7 or not?
I would.
You would? I think I would have to agree with that also. Just keep most current, make sure the most current apps still run on the phones. There's no real drawbacks to doing it. My mom has a 4S. She upgraded to iOS 7, and I call it the mom test. If my mom can do it, anybody can do it. It did pass the mom test, so I think that's pretty slick on that. I do know that if you were trying to do that update on Monday, it was really problematic. Why was that?
Because everybody else was trying to do it that same day.
Yeah, so I've heard it's got a lot better. It's much easier to do it. So if you were getting errors upgrading to the iOS 7 back on Monday, you might try it now. It wasn't a device error. It was just a pure overwhelming Apple servers, overwhelming connections. I think one of the gentlemen here from our office was showing us the internet bandwidth that happened here across Nex-Tech on Monday of people updating all these devices, the iPad, the iPhones, and it was amazing how much traffic was being sent across that. Now, with that, we have to talk. I want to talk just a minute about the iPad because my boys have iPad 1s. iOS 5 is the last version of that. So I think Santa at the right household is going to probably have to bring a newer iPad. I, however, run an iPad 2, and it is compatible with 7, and it runs pretty much flawless. So just have that. Any further words of advice on iOS 7 from you, Amanda?
Not that I can think of.
All right. So that leads us to move to Android. Everybody, it seems like, has an Android phone out there. I know that there's these, probably the biggest distinguishing factor that I would see right now in the hardware between Apple and Android is these massive phones, right? These huge displays. Now, personally, that seems like I'm holding a book to my head, but I know a lot of people are really going to these larger display phones. Is that what you're kind of seeing too?
Yeah, Samsung has larger display phones than Apple does, and it looks like they keep getting a little bigger, but they're still definitely in the game, and there's still a high demand for them.
Now, the phones not only are larger screen, but they're having to be a little bit heavier also, because with that larger screen, I'm needing a larger battery. Is that kind of what you're seeing too?
Yes.
And to keep that phone running all day, I know that that's been a real challenge. But with that, there's some definite technologies in there. But before we go to the technologies, I wanted to ask you, I'm a little confused on this Android operating system path. And I think you've done some real specific research on where are we going. I think 4.3 is the current out on that. And what was that called?
That is called Jelly Bean.
Jelly Bean, that's right. So what's coming next out of Google? What's the next version? Is it 5?
Well, that's what we thought. Recently I read that Google announced on the 3rd of this month that they were not going to skip up to the 5.0, which was going to be called Key Lime Pie, but instead they're going to go to the 4.4, which is going to be called Kit Kat. So that looks like the direction they're going right now. What that's going to include, I'm not sure of.
So they've really made this announcement just at the beginning of the month, and we're not getting a lot of details out on any improvements on that. But as far as we know, there's nothing significant at this point. But I would probably expect some major changes in the Android operating system here pretty soon, wouldn't you? There hasn't been a lot of movement on that here this year.
Yeah. Yep, I can see that coming.
Probably utilizing some of these newer hardware devices would be my best guess, but don't know for sure. So technologies, if you've seen the NFC or near field communication, this bump technology, you may have seen, I think it's the Samsung commercials that are most prevalent, where people go around and tap their phones together to send information or move a picture from one phone to the other phone. I think my prediction, this is my personal prediction, I don't want to hold anybody responsible, is that near field communication is going to become huge next year. We're seeing it show up in the Microsoft world on PC devices now. So transferring data files from your phone to your PC could be as easy as bumping your laptop or your tablet on a Windows device. We're really starting to see this near field communication being huge. In addition, we're starting to see this bump potentially being used in things like credit card information, security entrance into buildings, so you could use your phone instead of having one of those little credit card looking things. So I think this technology has the potential of being huge. Now, which leads me to ask, does iPhone have that at this point?
I am not sure on that.
I don't believe it does. I haven't seen that it does. I think they're just strictly Bluetooth at this point. But the bump technology is coming really fast and furious. So that's going to be an interesting technology to watch. I just did my first near field communication bump up technology, moving some pictures out of one tablet into my laptop. It was pretty slick. It was that easy. As soon as I did it, the computer said, hey, is this something you want to do? Do you recognize this device? Yes, I do. Send me the data. It was that easy. And it was super fast. Sending some large images across that, and it was very fast. Supposedly, near-field communication is faster than Bluetooth, which, of course, the range is much narrower, but it makes sense that it could be potentially faster on that. So Bluetooth, nothing's changed in that in a while, right? It's got a little faster. I think everything has Bluetooth, right? I can't even think of things that don't. We're starting to see desktop computers now come with Bluetooth for like keyboards, accessories, headsets, those kind of things. Not seeing a lot of change in that, but it works. I don't know what else you can change, right? Why mess with something that's broke? Cameras. You mentioned some changes in the iPhone camera. What were the changes there that you saw?
Changes in megapixels. On the video, high definition video, the frames per second is getting better, that sort of stuff.
So frames per second, that's one thing you mentioned. That would give me the ability to do slow-mo playback, right? Because I'd have more frames in an image. That'd be pretty neat if I was wanting to film a sporting event or something like that. I've noticed, was it the Nokia phones advertising this 42 megapixel camera where that you're in the action. I haven't had any one-on-one experience. I don't believe you have either. It sounds great, so hopefully we'll start seeing that proliferate through the rest of the camera industry on these devices. However, that is thicker. It's definitely adding more bulk to these cameras. So it's kind of are you willing to deal with the bulk of the camera, or do you want to still keep it super thin? We're seeing some pretty significant changes in the irises, and these cameras are taking better low-light pictures. I mean, they're really, my iPhone camera is good. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, it really works really well along with these. Now everybody's got the, what is it, where you do the long pictures?
Panorama.
Panorama, yeah. That's pretty slick. If you haven't done one of those, I definitely recommend giving that a shot. And then, of course, I wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention my children's favorite app, which would be Beardify and Fatify. I think they're free. They have the free apps where you can take a picture of your. In my case, my mother-in-law had a nice beard to her image, so I do recommend those apps on that standpoint. Tethering. So this is a big deal, right? To have tethering. Can you, first of all, Amanda, explain to us what tethering means conceptually here?
Tethering basically turns your phone into a hotspot, so you can connect other devices that may not have, internet access to it, to them directly, and then be able to surf the web or use the data from your phone to devices.
And I know, again, I mentioned I had children, and they're confused nowadays when we're traveling down the highway and they can't watch YouTube. So I can use my phone to give them that ability, right?
Correct.
So what are the drawbacks of tethering? What are the benefits? I mean, the benefits are pretty obvious, right? The fact that you don't need another device to allow maybe your iPad or whatnot to have data. But the drawbacks would be what? Maybe battery life?
Battery life, depending on, the phone, it could be if you have an incoming call, that connection, that internet connection may cease if your kids are watching a YouTube video and you get a call on that phone, that could interrupt that movie that they're watching, that sort of stuff.
Okay. Now, you got to be careful on your plan too, right? There's some limitations on tethering that you may have unlimited data on the phone, but not your tethering?
Correct.
So under Nex-Tech Wireless, I know that's where your industry expert is, what are the limitations at this point?
All of the smartphones come with 2 gig tethering. Now, if you hit that limit, you will still be able to tether, but your speeds are going to slow down quite a bit. We do have the 5 gig and the unlimited, depending on how much you are going to use that tethering option.
Now, do I have to pay more if I get past that 2 gig limit?
Yes, there is the price for additional tethering.
Okay, I got you. But am I notified somehow that I'm approaching that?
Yes, you will get a message showing or stating that you are.
And I know 2 gigs sounds like a really small number. I mean, 2, it's a really small number. But I was just looking at my iPhone, and I think I've used like 10 gigs since I've got the thing. And I mean, I've had it well over a year. So, I mean, that's a lot of data, right?
That is a lot of data.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. And that can be a huge deal to share with your tablets and all that stuff. Fingerprint reader, you mentioned on the iPhone. I'm not aware of another phone that has that feature, is there?
I'm not aware of one either.
Okay, so that's kind of a relatively new technology. It makes a lot of sense mobility-wise, speed-wise. I think that makes a lot of sense. So this is a message I'm familiar with. In fact, recently when I just did this iOS 7 upgrade, I had to clear out, was it 3-point-some gig of space because I didn't have that on my phone. This is becoming a bigger deal, right? I mean, people are storing a lot more stuff. I know my wife's horrible at erasing pictures that she takes. So I know the Apple, you can't really expand the memory. It is what it is, right? But most of the Google phones, the Android phones, I can expand that. How do I do that?
Android phones, most of them have a slot for an SD card, for a memory card, to add more memory to the phone. Also, Androids, clearing your cache can free up a little bit of space, which cache files are usually due to surfing websites, browsing Facebook, Twitter, that sort of thing. Your memory or your phone actually stores those so that the next time you go to those pages or those apps, will load them faster. So just by clearing the cache, that can clear up a little bit of storage space on your Androids.
Okay. And I know that videos are a memory hog, that's for sure. So are pictures. Music, not so much, but if you have a ton of music, it would. And of course, the one thing that we didn't mention on this storage is this cloud storage, which I think is what we're going to talk a little bit next, is that you really kind of get the ability to have some off-device memory. I know that my favorite, this iCloud, that's the one in the middle there, is my favorite. So now when my iPhone sees a hotspot or a wireless hotspot, not a cellular hotspot, all my pictures can be transferred to my computer and then I can delete them off. That's pretty slick. I can do the same with my wife's phone and keep everything kind of nice and tidy. And I think that gives me 5 gig for free. Is that what you see?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody has their version of this, right? I think you made a list of some of these. I think the C up there is Cubby, which is a new player to the market. Its claim to fame is security. We have Box down here at the side. They've been in the industry for a while. SkyDrive's Microsoft version. What do you get? 7 gig with that. Dropbox, you get 2 gig, 5 gig now.
Yeah.
5 gig now. Google Drive's 5 gig, I think. So if I added all these up, I could get like 20 gig of free storage at least in the cloud. And all of these, I think, yeah, all of these have a iPhone, a Google apps to store stuff. So you can have all your pictures automatically stored in the cloud. Great way to get some free storage, especially if you're running out. And I believe all of these are free to sign up. They have purchase versions where you can get, 100 gig or unlimited space for, a certain monthly payment, and that'll give you a chance to do that. iCloud. I know a lot of these, I think SkyDrive has their version, but iCloud, what other things can I do with iCloud?
You can back up your phone to iCloud so that if you had an accident with your iPhone, you go get a new one, you just sign into your Apple ID, and it all comes back from iCloud. Contacts, all of that, so you're not left without all of that.
That could be huge, for sure. Yep. So definitely look into that if you haven't tried it. All free to set up. Just use your Apple ID, and again, no cost to do that at all. Has to touch a little bit about feature phones. Feature phone, in my opinion, is a polite way of saying kind of not so smartphone, right? Almost a version of dumb phone. I don't want to quite call it that, but I did want to just touch a little bit that. You put the Sonum up here. I've seen some commercials on TV on that. Their claim to fame is probably the warranty. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
They do have a 3-year warranty on those phones. They are a very rugged phone, full military specifications on that. So if there is something that goes wrong on it, they back that up with a 3-year warranty.
And you just register it and you're good to go. So that's huge. The one on the right, the flip phone. I see a lot of people with flip phones. My in-laws have a flip phone. I'm still amazed by the battery. It lasts like a week. So folks that are not needing the data plans, you can definitely get a lower cost plan to support these phones. The technology hasn't changed, though, has it? This is pretty much the same flip phone I had 5 years ago, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So nothing too major, but the cost is definitely reasonable. Free or very low cost for sure. And I can't remember what you call these slider phones. What's the term you use for these phones, like texting phones or something?
Yeah, with QWERTY keyboards on them.
Okay. And I always call that the teenager phone. I'm not willing to pay for the data plan, but they text a lot, so I know that that's a great option for that. The last one here, I think, well, it's not the last, but the data-only devices, you put 3 specific ones. I have a MiFi. I think it's great, right? It's just a wireless hotspot. The reason I like that device is the fact that it runs for hours on a battery versus if I tether my phone. I mean, it just sucks the battery right out of my phone, and if I'm traveling, I can't do that. I need the battery life of my phone to last me all day, so I can use this MiFi to do it. But I can I guess, connect 5 devices at one time on that MiFi. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay, and then I can create my own little network. Pretty low-cost device to get that done. I think the USB one's pretty self-explanatory. Get my laptop mobile data, which, of course, I could do with tethering, but if I need to use my phone and data at the same time, this gives me that option. This little alien-looking device, what is that thing?
That's an AccessTel gateway router. Basically, it will help those rural areas that may not have access to wireless internet or fiber broadband of any sort. This will use cellular towers to get that internet to them. I know my parents actually live in rural southwest Kansas, and this is the only way that they can get internet out on the farm.
So the other thing that this would be really good for is like these, I always see the barbecue thing in the trailer, where they tow this thing to a different location every day. They could use this to do credit cards, those kind of things, get internet in theirs if they have a little POS. So any kind of business that might be using it has a switch right in the front. I was also thinking, now with our businesses being so cloud dependent, that this could be a redundant internet connection for that whole business. Sure, it's not going to be maybe as fast as a fiber connected or cable connected modem, but if, for a bank that may need to have a redundant internet connection, so if their primary connection gets done, backhoe cuts up the line going into their building, whatever, they can still do all online processing this way through this device. So I think that's probably a pretty good option for these type of devices. Is that what you're thinking?
Definitely.
And I'm seeing these monster antennas on this. I assume that the coverage or the reception of this device is probably pretty solid.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's definitely part of it. The next piece of this is the security of the mobile device. People have been predicting for years that these are going to be a kind of a target for mobile hackers. We haven't really seen it yet, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So I guess let's talk a little bit in detail about the remote wipe. I think that you have a little bit of experience with that.
Yeah, Apple has had that option for quite a while. It's the Find My iPhone, where you can ring your iPhone if you've lost it and wipe all the data off of there. That way, nobody gets a hold of that information. Google recently announced that they're going to roll out a version of that on their Androids. In the past, it's usually been a third-party app that you would have to purchase or download to do that, but they will be rolling out an Android device manager that's similar to the Apple's Find My iPhone, and should be available on devices running the Android 2.2 or newer. So that will be a benefit there.
I think that's definitely key. And we always recommend you put a keypad or a passcode on your phone. One of the more interesting things that even my wife had noticed is my children reading her text messages, which, not that she's texting anything inappropriate, but maybe it's not something the kids need to be knowing about. And so, there are options in the iPhones and the Android so it doesn't display the details of the text message, just who it's from, and that you have a text message. So if you have any questions from us of being able to set that up, we can help you through the settings to get that not to display. So if your phone's locked, or even, it won't show your text messages to everybody sitting around you and whatnot, and I think that can be huge. We're starting to see some encryption on these devices where you can encrypt your data. It's interesting. BlackBerry used to be the leader in technology on this, but I probably wouldn't recommend BlackBerry today. Can you even get one?
Yeah, they're still available out there.
Okay, I know that they're getting pretty rare, but their deal with security. I think the point today is make sure that you're aware of the security concerns. Make sure what data that you have on there. There are a lot of programs out there to help protect your phone, to install it, to VPN back to your corporate network, so all that data is encrypted, and email encryption is becoming a bigger part of these. Email in its current form is not considered secure. It's traversing the internet unencrypted. So know that emails that you send and receive from your mobile device, from your PC, it doesn't matter where it's at, that's really considered a security risk because it's just traversing the internet really unencrypted. So if somebody was snooping your traffic, you could definitely do that. So please be aware of that. The other thing that I'm starting to see a bigger potential for is, if you're looking for a Wi-Fi connection with your mobile device, in an airport especially, be aware of the ones that say free or that you're not aware or not advertised in the airport, because that could be somebody sharing an internet connection to then capture the data coming off your phone. That could be a huge security risk if you're sending or receiving important documents. So just be aware that it's important to maybe use things like VPNs, even on your mobile handhelds. It's something that's completely available today on your phones, and we can, I guess, get a little more one-on-one on that kind of stuff if that's a concern of yours. I know I'm not really worried about my personal email, but my business email could be a bigger deal. So with that, Amanda, did you have any closing things that you wanted to add for us today? She's nodding enthusiastically. Don't look at me for I get that again, so I guess that's a no. So I think, Tricia, we are going to send things your direction and see if you have any questions.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, we do have a few questions here, and we're going to answer all of those like we always do at the end of our webinar. So if anybody has any more, please go ahead and enter them now. I did want to remind everybody that we have some upcoming webinars on our nex-tech.com/free webinar site. You will also notice that we have some live events listed out there. We're going to have a couple of lunch and learns coming up at the end of October, one in Hayes, one in Russell. If you can make it to any of those, they would definitely be interesting. We're going to cover future technology for offices and have some live demo units of tablets and how and just come in and attend and find out if tablets would even be a good idea for your office or if they wouldn't be quite a good fit for you. Other than that, I'll get to the questions. First, someone's asking, with the new Galaxy 3, or I'm sorry, the Galaxy 3 that they had just bought, will that not work on a 4G network?
So the answer depends. If it's a Nex-Tech wireless phone, it is not 4G capable. However, if it is a Verizon phone, I believe specifically, that is a 4G capable device. So there's a couple different versions of the S3s, and it kind of depends on your carrier and which model you purchase. So I apologize I didn't give you a very direct answer. It just depends, but I can give you a Nex-Tech wireless answer that it is not capable of 4G from Nex-Tech wireless.
Okay. Next question is, how do you know if your phone is 4G LTE compatible?
That is a good question, and probably it's a handset by handset really device. And I suppose the most direct answer I could give to that is, if it's a Nex-Tech wireless phone, we can probably tell you moving forward. But go to your carrier and ask them. If it was probably purchased in the last, if it was purchased longer than 6 months ago, I'm going to probably say not really. It's probably not 4G capable. That's a guesstimate, so I don't want you to be absolutely telling. If it's more than a year old, I'm going to say probably absolutely not.
Okay, thanks.
So that's where you get stuck on that 2-year contract, and you're going, geez.
I believe we were talking about upgrading to the iOS 7 before. And you, I think, mentioned that the 4S may be the lowest model that upgraded, and someone said they were able to upgrade their iPhone 4 on the iOS 7, so they got to do that.
Excellent.
Next question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a good deal. I know a couple of folks with the 4s, so that's good to know. And I'd love to get a little bit of feedback. Are they noticing any performance issues too? Because I wouldn't see any huge reason why it wouldn't work, but there is a little bit of a processor degradation between the 4 and the 4S. So, I'd like to know if there was any issues with that before we made any recommendations.
Okay, thanks. Do you offer data plans for iPads?
We do not at Nex-Tech Wireless. We recommend either using the tethering that comes with all smartphones or the MiFi type solution, but we do not offer anything where the iPad itself it has a data plan.
Okay, then the last question is, when will the 4G be coming to rural areas such as Phillipsburg?
It is coming by the end of the year. Phillipsburg's going to be a little questionable particular, but I'm relatively comfortable in saying that we're going to be okay by the end of the year. I'm not going to guarantee that, but I think further details are coming. They're working on the tower upgrades currently, and so it will not be on the first immediate rollout, which is coming out pretty quick here, but it will be pretty closely after that. That's a political correct
Okay,
answer
what
right
was,
there.
the next question is, what was the router for the cell phone?
Are we talking about the
Access Tel?
Access Tel piece? I believe is what we were talking about there. That's the brand name of the product that we're talking about there.
Okay, there we go. That was the last question then. I'm sorry, did you have something else to say, Steve?
Nope, if you just ask for the Access Tel, that tells us what we need to know to kind of give us an idea of what you're talking about there. And it is a router,
okay.
too. So,
all right, I did get one more last question. Sorry about that. It says, how will the 4G affect MiFi devices?
The MiFis that you currently have will still only be 3G. There will need to be a purchase of a 4G MiFi device if you want the MiFi 4G speeds. So it won't affect them from a standpoint that you will still get the current service that you have. However, if you want to get the 4G speeds, you will have to have an equipment upgrade.
Okay, great. I think that covers everybody's questions, and thank you all for joining. We will see you on our next webinar.